Hey guys, welcome back. It's time to get started on this thing. The first thing that I'm gonna do is pull off this basket and get in here, and I need to check this linkage. I have another one over here. I'm gonna clean this up, and I'm gonna attempt to pull out these bushings and see how bad they are. Maybe give them some grease. Might have to buy a bushing kit, but it doesn't look like we're gonna have to on this one. I'm not sure what this is called. I think this, I'm just gonna call it a lower suspension linkage. I mean, I guess that's really what it is. It says dog bone on this thing, but that's what I got. So let's get going with that, and I'll update you on the progress. All right, guys, here's what I found. I created quite the list of things that it needed, but we'll jump right into it. This chain is hot garbage. There's no doubt about it. Kind of the rule of thumb is if the chain is painted or colored in any way, it's probably not a chain that you should put on your bike. So one thing I noticed pretty quickly was that this sprocket is absolutely mangled. This front sprocket is no good. It almost looks like they used it and then flipped it around and used it again, because you can see that the teeth are bent way over. So that's no good. And then I noticed that the rear brake pads need to be replaced. This sprocket I think is definitely usable, but I think we're going to get a new one anyways. The seal, the primary shaft seal, is definitely no good. I noticed that there's a lot of oil leaking out of here when I rotate this around. Front brakes are no good. Come over here. We can see that this foot peg is absolutely murdered, and this kickstart looks like there's something funky going on here. You can see that it's gouged, and I think it's because it keeps hitting off this this foot peg, but I don't think it should be. So I don't know if maybe this needs to be adjusted or what needs to happen there. And then this filter definitely needs to be replaced. This filter is falling apart in the filter box. But that's everything kind of at first glance. Let's see if I missed anything. Let's see. And I noticed that the rear brake fluid reservoir was a little empty. It does look brand new though. And oh, fork seals. Yeah, fork seals are definitely leaking. And this side I think is a little bit worse. Yeah, you can see that the seals are leaking for sure. But other than that, next thing I'm going to jump onto is that lower suspension linkage, and I have to pull off the basket for that. So let me get to it. Real quick before we jump into that, this is a used lower linkage that we found. The new one was just really expensive, and it just wasn't worth putting on this bike. I think it was, $350 or something like that. But we found this used one on eBay, and I pulled the bushings out, and everything looks really good in here. And I just packed them with grease and put it back together. But this should definitely be good to use. All right, well, that part was a bit of a pain, but we got it out, and we can definitely see where the issue is here. So it actually sits in the bike just like this, and so this is where the bottom of the shock mounts, and there's supposed to be a bushing here. And as you can see, the only thing that was here was this bolt. And so the shock was just sitting in there and going like this. And this bike was probably one bump away from a pretty good failure. But thankfully, we got this new part right here and everything checks out. Now we just gotta put it back in. All right, guys, it's the next day. And last night I spent some time and I was able to get the new linkage back in. This bolt right here was cross-threaded pretty bad, so I re-threaded this bolt and was able to get it put back together. I looked up online to verify that there was no extra parts that needed to be in there. I took a peek at the schematics, and while I was doing that, I noticed that there should be some washers that go over the top of this bushing here. For illustration purposes, this sits on top of this bushing right here, and there should be one on either side. So when you tighten that bolt down, it can still rotate. So I went to Lowe's and I tried to find a washer that was close enough in size that I could get away with without having to buy a whole bushing kit, because the bushings on the new part are just fine. So you can see that this is the original, the only one that came off, and you can see that this sits right on top of that bushing. And so I bought 2 sets of washers here, and this one has a little bit bigger inside diameter, but it doesn't, I don't think this will stop the bushing from coming up through, so I don't think we're going to use these ones. This one right here, however, is flat on one side, and it sits pretty decently on top of that bushing. So I think we're going to go this route and make sure that we get that in there and get them greased, so that way we don't have any failures out on the trail. And we are back. All right, so I ended up getting this linkage put back together. Everything is tightened down and torqued down. I had to end up re-threading the end of this bolt as well. And yeah, I think everything's all back together. I kind of put the basket back together so I can see if there's still any play in the suspension, but now there's almost, I don't know if you could see it, but now I can actually push down and there's some resistance on the shock, as before there was none at all. But I think that will do it. I do want to say that I have checked this rear shock and there are no signs of leaking. The funny story about this is the guy that we got this bike off said that the rear shock was bad and needed to be rebuilt. Well, it turns out he definitely knew what was going on here, because the entire bottom linkage was bad. So try before you buy, kids. All right, that'll do it for this video. I'm trying to keep them short and sweet, to the point. This one was really geared towards getting that rear suspension taken care of. And next up, most likely we're going to be doing the front suspension. If you like this content, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe. Thank you.